But yeah, the first thing I'm gonna do is talk about a current situation going on in the black social media space, more so the black nerd space. I do want to like give like my 2 cents on it, or my buck 50, if you will. This is, this might be like a long yap session. This here is Rob Jefferson, aka Comics Explained. He is one of, if not the biggest comic book channels on YouTube, and he's been involved in a little bit of drama lately. So for those who live under a rock, it's Black History Month, and Rob is black. So for a lot of people, they kind of hoped and assumed that during Black History Month, Rob would cover some black comic book characters, some black comics in general, and highlight, some like the more indie black comic book spaces. He didn't. He's just been doing, his usual videos. So through that, people have created a form of drama surrounding Rob, and making accusations about him, saying that he's, all these different things, saying that he's an Uncle Tom, calling him a trash panda, another word for trash panda. If you are aware of some of the derogatory terms, I'm not going to use the actual word here because this might go up on YouTube and YouTube gets a little angry. Twitch don't care. But when it comes to Rob, people just been calling him a lot of things, and one of the things is racist. People calling him a self-hater and things like that, mostly because he just hasn't covered black comic book characters all that much in general. Like, he's covered some, but like not in a way of a black guy covering black characters, but more so just they exist. So I want to talk about them here and there. And for a lot of people, this is a world we're living right now where people want you to be part of a group. No one likes the idea of someone who exists outside of a tribe. They want you to be either your right or your left. And there is no in-betweens. There's no grays. There's no purples and blues and pinks and all these other. There's no nuance. There's nothing else. It's just you're either this box or you're this box. There's no mixing those boxes together. You're just one or the other. And so since we have that kind of society where you're one or the other, since Rob himself exists outside of the space on purpose, he's a very ambiguous individual when it comes to his thoughts and his beliefs and things like that. It is, when you're ambiguous, it allows people to fill in the gaps. People are like, okay, well, he's not covering black comic book characters on Black History Month. He doesn't really talk about his own blackness. He doesn't really do very black things in general. Maybe he hates being black. Maybe he is anti-black. Maybe he hates black people. They create these things about him, even though they don't know these things as like factual or anything like that. They're plugging in their own thought processes. They're projecting their own beliefs into the empty space that he leaves open because he doesn't talk about it. So this entire drama has been essentially people calling Rob names and things like that because he doesn't really mention his background. He doesn't talk about his beliefs. So in this particular video is Rob responding to all that backlash, and that backlash of, hey, you're a racist, you're all these individual things, regardless of the fact that he himself has never like really said anything to point himself in that kind of situation. And some of what people think of him comes from who he follows on social media. So he follows Critical Drinker and someone else's name, I forgot what it was, Neurotic, whatever his name is. And both of them are white supremacists. They're both openly white supremacists. And Rob's excuse is he follows them because he just wants to know what they say. He himself identifies as a centrist. He says that he doesn't agree with them. He doesn't like them. He doesn't respect them. He wouldn't hang out with them in person, things like that. And that's what he has said. He says he follows them because he wants to know what that side of the fence says to get his own opinion, in general. So whether that's right or wrong is irrelevant. So in what I just said there, though, I mentioned that he has openly stated he's a centrist. People do not like you when you try to be censor. They want you to be, like I said, either in this box or you're in this box. No betweens. No mixing and matching. You're either in this box or you're in this box. Nothing else. People don't like people who are like just trying to be a fence sitter. Because being a centrist is basically just fence sitting. They don't want you to be a fence sitter. They want you to be a centrist. They want you to just pick one or the other. It's like being a deist. For those who know what a deist is, it's a religion. If you are someone who believes in deism, and you talk to someone who's a Christian and someone who's an atheist, they don't like you. They view you as a cop-out. They view you being a deist as a cop-out. They want you to be one or the other, not a mixing of both, because it's kind of a mixture of both. It's basically having like all the thought process of an atheist, but you believe in a god to an extent. So you're essentially you're sitting on the fence when it comes to a religious belief. People don't want that. They want you to pick one or the other. So Rob being a centrist, they want to pick one or the other. So Rob, he goes through talking about how, you know, he doesn't like the orange man. He doesn't like, you know, the people who make a drink code, and things like that. So we're not getting into that. We don't care. We don't care. We're talking about blackness, not the actual politics of anything. Because who cares? At least in this context, who cares? It's not what this is about. Take that shit somewhere else. It's not a political channel. But this is a black channel, so we will talk about blackness. We had this conversation before about Zoe Zaldana and how, you know, she chooses women and will not to be black. So Rob, we'll clip through some of the video so you can get like his 2 cents on things. One thing that I've noticed in like, I've watched this video, I've watched this video, and I've watched this video. Have not seen this one though. But one of the things I've noticed about Rob is that he tries to not actually use labels at all. Like he'll say, I have brown skin, but he won't say I'm black, you know? And I feel like when you try to pick and choose labels, it creates, again, that ambiguity. It creates that area of people who are going to fill in the blanks. Like, okay, you've had multiple times to just be like, I'm a black man, but instead you keep saying I'm male brown skin, right? And make no mistake about it, Rob, you know, he's people kind of like create this like I said, they fill in the blanks, and he himself doesn't like say anything to like say no, don't fill these blanks in. He even mentions that he has a wife. When he mentions his wife, he doesn't mention my wife's a black woman. He tries again. He skirts around the actual label itself. But his wife is a black woman. He has brothers and sisters who are also black. So this is a black guy who tries to exist outside of blackness, and the reason is because Rob is a flying milk. You know, let's just call him Buck a Buck. Rob is a flying milk. Now, for those who know what a flying milk is long story short, is a black person who grew up in a white space. Rob has grown up in a white space. So he doesn't really associate with his blackness that much or that well because most of his friends have been white. Most people he associates with outside of his family has been white. So he's a flying milk. His entire ability to exist as a human being has been within white communities. And when that happens to you, you don't know how to associate with blackness. And he doesn't. That's why he has a hard time saying, you know, black terms. That's why he has a hard time saying or just labeling himself as black or his wife as black, because he himself has not existed in a space where he does that. One of the things that I agree with from another person, who people kind of like crown as king of the blacks on YouTube, is FD Signifier. FD down here.
This should have been Jennifer Walters.
FD down here, he made the comment that that Rob needs black friends. What's the gist of it? He was like, Rob needs black friends. Because he basically, he comes to the same conclusion that I come to, that he's just a fly milk. You know, that he's just like someone who just he's a black dude who has not existed around black people. So he needs a group of black friends, which is what he needs, you know? And the reason why he needs it is because it'll allow him to learn, you know, why people are attacking him the way they're attacking him, and why people are approaching him the way they're approaching him. Sorry, I got distracted because I made this comment on FD's video. I watched the video 2 hours ago, left a comment, it has 8 likes since one commented. Let's see. We'll get back to Rob in a second. I just want to read this comment real quick. My partner is one of the few black people in my life, and just from being with them for 6 years, I've learned so much. My partner is politically engaged, heavily invested in black liberation, and we have good conversations. But not every experience is going to be like that. There is so much diversity of thought among black people. I'd imagine my takeaways would be different. If I had a centrist partner or a trad wife, I mean, I would work with a black woman who wore a Jelly Roll shirt the other day. I'd be out of pocket for saying this, but I don't think the type of black person to listen to Jelly Roll will be as invested in black liberation. I'm going to have a different perspective that might not be aligned with most black people. I'm fortunate that my partner also has black friends and family that I get to spend time with, so I can get a glimpse of how diverse everyone can be within a black community. This goes into the comment that black isn't a monolith, that black has a lot of identity, a lot of different beliefs and things of that nature. This person doesn't really like. Okay, so now we can see. So he looks like he's either white or white passing, so he could be like white Latino or white and Asian. Looks like someone who's basically just white passing. So he looks like he has something else in there. But the reason why I want to like mention that is he basically tell you, I don't know shit about black people, but I got a black girlfriend or a black wife. He said he's married. I had a black wife, and through being around her, I've learned a lot about being around black people and how important it is for a black person to be around black people. Essentially, my comment, by the way, is me saying that Rob needs to have some black friends, which is what FD also said. It matters a lot because you learn about people. I myself am a cis black man. I'm straight, is basically what I'm telling you. I can't have any idea what goes on in the gay community if I don't have gay friends. I have a lot of gay friends, so I know. So now I know from outside looking in what's going on just via the people who I associate with and communicate with. My sister is bisexual. She's been married to a woman before, got divorced. Sister has also had a white boyfriend. She's been, as with being, you know, a heterosexual black man, you know, who's also Native American and Irish. In order for me to gain knowledge of other communities, I need to have friends from other communities. I have friends who are Asian, so if I need to know things about what's going on in the Asian community, I ask those Asian friends. Also look at videos involving, you know, Asian drama, you know, when it comes to political stuff. And same thing goes around. I have Arabic friends. When I need information going on in Arabic life, I'll ask, you know, my Arabic friends, like, or I'll ask Autumn. The point is, you know, in order for me to gain knowledge of other communities, I put myself into communication with people who are part of those communities. And even when it comes to like just being black, because you understand when it comes to like being a black nerd, especially growing up as a black nerd, you were already kind of an outcast because being a black nerd was not as well received back then as it is now. I was like 41 years old. So when he was growing up, being a black nerd was kind of like lame. You were a loser. No one wanted to be friends with you, especially black people. Black folk didn't want anything to do with you if you were a black nerd. They want you to fuck off. You're a weirdo. You got white hobbies, and things like that. So through that experience, a lot of older black nerds don't like black people because they grew up in with black people giving them shit. So Rob, you know, being a flying milk, he probably has a little bit of like prejudice towards, you know, the black community a little bit. Not from a racist standpoint, but from a standpoint of when I was younger, I got made fun of. You know, it happens with a lot of people. Like FD is a nerd. He'll say the same thing. He grew up, you know, people give him a bit of a side of being a nerd. I'm sure this guy right here did the same thing. So you talk to anyone who's over the age of 25, who's a black nerd, they'll tell you. So Rob needs black friends. That's the moral of the story. He needs black friends. He also needs to stop avoiding the word black. Yeah, he seems like he wants to avoid it entirely because it is a politically charged like word. Don't avoid it. Own it. You know, you're 41 now. It's not 1990s whatever or the year 2000. There's way more people who are open about, you know, being a blerd, which is basically just a term that means black nerd. His name is called Blerd Without Fear. It's just combining two words, black and nerd, together. So what we're going to do, Chad, is going to just, you know, jump through some of these videos, not launch the entirety of them because, you know, time. and then chime in a little bit, right? Right. So start things off with FDs, aka King of the Blacks. That's just a nickname that he has gotten, King of the Blacks.
Talk about my man here. We can also get into what it means to be in white people's business. He's not white, he's black, he's biracial. Who's the other guy that he's beefing with? Let me just tell you what I know right now. He is a pretty big deal in nerd YouTube, but I noticed a long time ago that he wasn't involved. He said Blerd the nerd, that he wasn't involved in any black anything. Wasn't involved, it was a Blerd without fear. How do I explain this? So being a black nerd is hard, just in general. Being black is hard, let's start there. Being black is hard. Being a black nerd is hard, and being a black nerd creates this bifurcation of self-identification. When you're a black nerd, you're incentivized to engage in non-black spaces more than non-black nerds do. Does that make sense? When I went to EVO, even though fighting games is probably one of the blackest nerd spaces that exists, it's the fighting game community, but I'm still going to be surrounded by half non-black people. I'm still going to be encouraged to not necessarily be around black people all the time. Same thing for comics. Probably the worst is anime. I feel like black anime fans, you have the highest propensity for anti-black nonsense with anime. That's just my perspective. I may be wrong. Music, film, movies, just anything that you might be a nerd about if you're black, there's gonna be a higher propensity to exit black spaces. Now, exiting black spaces does not mean you have to go on the Tyler, the Creator arc. I said that before when I talked about Tyler. You can be RDC. Those are clearly a bunch of nerds from Texas that maintain clear connections.
I often say, and part of why being a nerd nowadays is like so well accepted is because of black people. Black folk made being a nerd cool. And it's mostly because of RDC. RDC has made being a nerd cool. So during the time of like, you know, TikTok and Vine, when those are like starting to like pop out, a lot of social media was just their content and content like it, where it's just like a bunch of freaking goofy ass black people dressed as Naruto characters and dancing around, right? And it made anime look cool. Anime, much like everything else in nerd culture, was not seen as cool up until about 2016. You know, when from you know the Toonami days up till freaking 2010, most people who were like into anime were like kind of like closetly into anime. Like it wasn't like something that you kind of like bragged about in school. You didn't dress up like Naruto characters and just be goofy. If you did, you got made fun of. I had a friend, still have a friend from high school, named Quante. We call him Kento. And the name Kento is his nickname, but for some people, it was meant to be derogatory. It was meant to make fun of him for being a black guy who's into Japanese shit. People call him Kento. But he kind of like embraced it because it was also just a general his nickname, and you know, kind of just stuck. So Kento, he would like do his hair, his thick black hair. He would do it in like, you know, anime hairstyles and shit. This dude's, you know, as dark as my microphone, as dark as my hair. this is black. He would run around the hallways doing the Naruto run, just full on embracing his love of anime. And for him, he was just enjoying himself. But there were people in the school who just thought he was a weirdo. People in the school who thought he was awkward. If he did that now, people wouldn't think he was weird or awkward. They was like, oh, he just a dude in anime. But that change happened because people like RDC made anime cool.
To the black spaces that birthed them. The best of all of us in terms of black nerd energy and popularity. Corey Kenshin doesn't seem like he is avoiding black spaces. When you are a black nerd in 2026 and over the last 10 years, essentially, and you've not found black nerd spaces, I do side eye you a little bit. I do question you a little bit because you don't have to now. Being a black nerd was way harder. It just was. It was not easy to be a black nerd in the 90s because there was no internet. You did feel much more out of place. You felt like it was much more necessary to separate yourself from other black kids, especially because black nerdness was also so much less visible. Like that social ostracism of being a black nerd was even more intense. It was hard in the 90s. One of the reasons why I love football is because that was the only way to bond with a lot of people in my family because we couldn't play video games together. We wasn't playing Tecmo Bowl. Nobody learned how to play Tekken with me. In the last 10, 15 years, Gen Z does not have this. I'm not saying it was easy for y'all. I'm just saying y'all do not know the old magic. You know what I mean? Y'all don't know what that feels like. So you have even less of an excuse. But the bottom line is in 2026, regardless of if you're old or young, if you are black and nerdy, you might have some white folks in your crew. You might connect with some white nerds are dope. I love white nerds. But if you are completely surrounded by white folks as a black nerd in 2026, that indicates a decision. So from what I understand, somebody pointed out that Comics Explained has never done much of anything with black superhero characters at all. Like I noticed that years ago, and I kind of was just like, hey, it'd be like that with them sometimes. I've never been a huge Comics Explained fan because no shade, it's kind of lazy content. Like he's reading Wikipedia, but sometimes you want the Wikipedia nostalgia moment in the background.
I do
right?
think like I'm sure FD just means that it's like an offhand like comment, offhand joke. And I will say it's important to like point this out. Rob doesn't just read Wikipedia or things like that. Like he does have a lot of knowledge about comic books, and it is kind of like insulting just to be like, oh, he reads Wikipedia. Again, I think FD is just making like an offhand like throwaway joke. Basically just more so to say that what Rob does isn't like crazy content. Like he's not doing anything extravagant. He's just telling you like what happens in the book, and that's it. Like it's basically like an Audible in 20 minutes essentially. Like imagine you want to read Harry Potter, but you don't want to read Harry Potter, so you get the Audible. So someone's reading you the book for you. That's pretty much what Rob's content is hey, you want to know about Blue Marvel? Well, here's a 20-minute summary on the character Blue Marvel. That's what it is. And yes, it's not crazy content.
I'm not ever hating nobody getting their money. But so somebody called him out, and then it created a lot of drama on top of that. So let me pose that misdirection. Most coons have 4 black grandparents, so don't let them off the hook. Cooning is a decision, regardless of your biological makeup.
And I saw it kind of escalate a little bit more in the past few hours, and I wanted to talk about it a little bit, and kind of maybe give some perspective. So yesterday, Rob was called for not uplifting black comics and black comic creators, black superheroes, stuff like that during Black History Month. And well, I think the person who threw that label at him was kind of out of pocket. I also have to admit that there is a reason maybe why there is this perception. Now, let's go ahead and just clear the air here. Rob has...
So on that take, I'm going to jump through here again. So someone else basically said that Rob is, a trash panda in a negative way, not in a fun, loving way, because he doesn't uplift other creators. And in that kind of like sense, you can't project what other people should be doing with their platform. Me as a small content creator, it is not, let's say, FD or Siri X's or RDC's job to be like, hey, y'all, it's Black History Month. Go follow this man Anubis on Twitch because I like his content. He's a really good gamer and yada 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 yada. It's not their job to do that because they have a bigger platform than I do, and we're all black. You can't project that onto people. So saying that Rob is a trash pan in a negative way because he doesn't mention other creators, isn't fair to him, because you're assuming that someone should be uplifting another like platform. A lot of people don't want to share the pie, and you can say what you want about them. A lot of people, they want to keep their community, right? At the same time, Rob's community is mostly white guys. Majority of people who watch Rob's content are white guys, and so they're not going to want to watch Blerd without fear. They're not going to want to watch Empty Signifier. They're not going to want to watch me. They're not going to want to watch anyone else other than Rob because Rob provides comic content without putting his own race into it. His name by default puts his race into his content.
Is the money move, period. If you want to make money, you want a white audience. If you want to make the most money, that is the difference between Comics Explained and my man right here, maybe. That is the difference between Drake and Kendrick before now, even though Kendrick still had a large white audience. I've said this a bunch of times. I don't ever begrudge black artists who go seeking that white audience. And I don't even get too mad when it's obvious you're just keeping just a little bit of distance. Cashapp versus ISO Speed right now, right? That's a good example. It's very clear that Cashapp wants to perform blackness for a white audience. I don't care enough to be angry at celebrities or micro celebrities as long as they're not doing overt harm. Does that make sense, chat? If they're not doing overt harm, but they're not saying embarrassing coon shit, then I'm like, all right, cool, whatever, go do your thing. So let's hear him explain, because the things that really got me paying attention is he called black comics political. And I just like, So let's hear him out.
All the controversies that happened in the last few days. I'm sure people are going to ask, why did it take Rob so long to respond? Well, I'll be honest with you guys. After I first saw Bernie's video, I was pissed. I was insane.
Oh, I do want to say, I love Black History Month for the memes and the memes only. And if they happen to be right about my man here, but if your call out to a person is that they don't do Black History Month content, I'm sorry, I have no interest in amening that, like at all. You will not find me wasting brain cells on whether or not someone's Black History Month content is up to par. Nebula asked me this month, like, hey, Black History Month stuff. And I was like, yeah, and I never responded. I forgot. because I just do not care. Now, if he was more on code, he might have been able to say that. Like,
I do black shit all the time. I don't need to do nothing for the month.
so let's see. Let's watch and hear him his excuse.
I don't think I've ever been that angry in my entire life, right? Because the whole video was effectively a hit piece, right? And it was just dragging me through the mud. It was leaving out statements that I made in that video on Twitter that didn't make me look racist, and then keeping statements that actually made me look racist. So, like, as an example, one of the things I said in that video on Twitter that already left out, and it's kind of skimmed over, grouped into, then he started talking about some, erroneous, unnecessary thing, is that when I sit down and make a video, I do not at any point take into account the skin color of the writer, the artist, or the main character, their race, or any of that stuff. The only standard I use is whether or not I enjoy the story. The only time that race plays a factor is if the race of that character is an intrinsic part of that story. But yeah, I was mad as hell. Like, I was fucking pissed. And there were a lot of erroneous claims that were made in that video. For example, one of the things he said is that my audience is mostly white. I mean, he doesn't know that because I don't know that. And I don't know that because YouTube doesn't tell me that. YouTube gives me a lot of analytics. But as far as I know, there is...
You can tell when your audience is mostly white if you care enough to pay attention. Take it from a YouTuber of significant success who has a significant white audience. You can tell who's watching your stuff, right? This is black fatigue. So you can tell. You can't reach certain numbers on YouTube doing certain types of content with an all-black audience. My black villains video doesn't hit 1 million. It's pretty black. So I'm going to try to be as empathetic as I can. I'm not interested in the dog pile. I'll probably throw some shade, obviously. But I feel like it's interesting. It's more interesting to analyze how this occurs. So one of the first things he said here,
the only time that race plays a factor is if the race of that character is an intrinsic part of that story. And that's what I use the example of the Marvel. Right?
So he's already starting from a stance of colorblind racism. And I use colorblind racism on purpose because what the average white person, that's not like a foaming at the mouth, Turning Point USA type, and a lot of niggas that grow up around those types of white people that don't have a certain black consciousness built into them, they roll with this colorblind racism narrative that you're not supposed to see color. That was the trick in the 80s. After the Black Power movement and, the real radical stuff was killed off and they took Martin Luther King and watered him down to just the I Have a Dream speech, the thing was,
we're not supposed to see color.
And the reason why that was so effective is because it focused race on an individual moral thing for everyone, especially for white people. And so immediately when I hear that, I know that you're lacking at a minimum in a basic understanding of how racism and race works.
But again, those things got left out because it was much easier for me to just take out that segment of me saying, I'm not really a huge fan of Milestone, and then to say, Rob doesn't identify as black, that kind of thing. Right? So that's why the whole video felt like a hit piece. Now, whether or not it was somebody's intention to create a hit piece on me, I don't know. But it looks like Black Duck, whatever. And so following that, right, I had to calm down. And everybody started making videos, right? People on TikTok making videos, people on YouTube making videos. TikTok was full of no punches, right? It was nuts on TikTok. When people on TikTok were making videos, I just sat back and started watching it. And some of the people who were making videos, they were just trend jacking. People talking shit about Comics Explained. I'll get my looks into.
Yeah. So in this regard, to give grace.
One thing I want to point out when it comes to Rob as well, I guarantee you throughout his entire career as a YouTuber, he has had similar kind of like comments thrown at him. He just didn't care. The reason he cares now enough to make a video about it is because of like, I think it pissed him off. I think he probably saw something on TikTok that really, really bothered him. Even his original video, because I watched it, he mentioned that he talked to his wife about it. And it's like, when you feel the need to like, even like the cameras are off, the screen is off, you're talking to your significant other, and you mention it, that means something was said in one of those TikTok videos, or even by freaking Blerd Without Fear, to where it personally got to him. A lot of times when it comes to people being negative towards you, you don't care. Because it's just words on the internet. Like, if someone comes to my chat right now and says something hateful, I don't care. But there can be a trigger word, or it could be a trigger person. You might see someone who has, 25,000 views mention you, and it's like, I kind of care now, versus some, random dude who has an anime picture of some feet as their picture for the profile. You don't care about that guy. You care about the person who does have a platform, who's saying something. And depending on what words get used, it could trigger something in your brain that just makes you very, very angry. Rob even says, I had to calm down. It means he saw something that pissed him off, that literally made him very, very, very angry, and he need to find a way to like calm the hell down.
I hate that shit. Oh God, I hate it. I hate the effigy pile on that we do for black folks. I really dislike it. I almost never participate in them. I don't come out and defend folks unless they really should be defended, because I don't want to end up on a Summer Jam screen. There's a really reactionary way that black folks will dogpile on other black folks, that where if we really cared about fixing the problem, we would turn the volume down just a little bit. So in that regard, I haven't watched it. That's why I didn't, like, up until I had conversations privately, I wasn't paying any attention to this, because to me, this is just a dude with maybe low racial self-esteem, low race consciousness, did some things that people with low racial self-esteem, low race consciousness do. And it was...
Yeah, that's the gist of it. I said before, he exists outside of his blackness. So because of that, he does have, as the FD said, low racial self-esteem. He's not really like happy about his skin tone, essentially. He doesn't hate his skin tone, but he's not happy about it because, again, flying milk. And then at the same time, seeing like all these comments going towards him because of it makes him a little bit more, frustrated and aggressive when it comes down to it. And also just lacking information and intelligence of his own race, because again, flying milk. So again, he needs black friends. Again, see this guy right here who says his black wife, he sees her and how important it is for her to have her black friends.
It provides an interesting topic, and at a minimum, I guess I added perspective that makes it a little less nonsensical.
The only thing that I think most people really wanted to know was that when it came out that I followed Critical Drinker and Nerdrotic on Twitter, that in that statement in the video that I made, where I said I listen to people like them because I'm not 100% right and they're not 100% wrong, that statement came off as very ambiguous, and people wanted to know, what do I agree with them on? Right?
Yeah.
So, then seeing all these videos people were making, and how it was all snowballing, people were saying things like, I bet Rob's a Trump supporter, like I bet Rob's against trans rights, I bet Rob's definitely racist. All right, let's get some motherfucking shit cleared up right now. My guy, there has never been a time when I have been a Trump supporter. I am not a fan of what ICE is doing out there. I got brown skin, in case you didn't notice. So the Supreme Court and Clarence Thomas, who doesn't know he's black, they named me public enemy #1. Right? At any point, like every single day, I get up and I go out into the world, and I know that some ICE agent can run up on me and tell me to produce my papers. Right? And if I tell him, well, if I ask why am I
think he is in Minnesota.
I live with that anxiety every day. Right? So yeah, no, I am not a fan of what they are doing. I agree with them with the idea that there is merit to the argument. People kind of have superheroes, they don't want to see change. They don't want to see anybody else take their place. Where we part company is when they say it's a problem when superheroes are switched out for other superheroes, but they only talk about that in relation to Sam Wilson replacing Steve Rogers, and they say nothing about Wally West replacing Barry post-crisis, and they say nothing about Barry replacing Wally in the New 52. If you legitimately believe that your favorite superhero is being replaced.
So somebody said he's stalling. I wouldn't call him stalling. You know, I'm gonna finish hearing him out. I'm gonna finish hearing him out just to be fair. But I think I already know what this is.
That scene between She-Hulk and Bruce Banner, right? When She-Hulk is screaming about how she's always angry and that was incredibly poorly handled. I disagree with them. That it was her getting catcalled sometimes. Right? I disagree with that. Honestly, I don't think that scene went far enough. What I think that scene should have done is it should have brought some real world shit into it. I know the whole show was a comedy, and that's fine. But I feel like it should have brought some real world shit into it. Which is to say, what should have happened in that scene is it should have been Jennifer Walters telling Bruce Banner, yeah, I'm always angry, Bruce. I'm not pissed off because of what happens in my life. I'm pissed off for them, and I'm pissed off because I know that there's nothing I can do.
I don't even think he's trying to appease both sides, but I'll break it down. I just want to make sure I hear him.
I would have done that scene. Right? But I think looking at Captain America, that movie was trash because to me that didn't go far enough. Right? When I look at
the thing is, Rob, the long story short on these videos and on Rob in general is he doesn't talk about his own blackness nor the blackness of the comic book characters because he doesn't want to lose money. And this isn't like attack Rob. This is just how everything works when a content creator. People like money. It pays their bills. You don't want to affect your status quo. You don't want to affect your ability to make cash. If Rob focused on his own blackness, if Rob focused on making content directed towards black comic book fans, his view count will plummet. His subscriber count will plummet because there's people who watch him who don't want to see that. And those people outnumber people who do want to see that. So his livelihood will be affected by it. And you can say, well, if he was a real this or that or activist, he's not an activist. He never said he was. So just because you might be an activist, you can't project someone else being just as much of an activist as you are because you want them to be. At the end of the day, this is his job. And so his viewpoint stops at, this is my job. I gotta make sure I can feed my family, make sure I can pay my bills. So I'm not going to affect my status quo because y'all want me to.
This is informative. This isn't performative. This isn't performative. I'm gonna tell y'all what this is. When you have low race consciousness and low racial self-esteem, you take racists at their word. He really thinks that him and Critical Drinker and this other dude just disagree. He doesn't understand that Critical Drinker is a white supremacist. Yeah, he doesn't want to accept it. Deeply, he knows. Deeply, he's probably not as bothered by it as he should be. When you have low racial self-esteem and low race consciousness and low, like a poor understanding of how these things work, which is the design of our society. Our society is designed to produce exactly what he's saying here. To say, these are just disagreements on perspective.
I'll have a conversation with anyone.
You can just disagree with the white supremacist. Oh, you say Jordan, they buy shoes too? Trading water because he knows his audience. Yeah, that too. Let's see where he finishes this up. This is a little rambly.
The Rap had an article that came out in like 2023 or something like that in the Marvel reviews. 41% of viewership was women. I don't know about you, but 41% is a pretty big number. If I change your DNA by 41%, you'd be a tree. So 41% makes a big difference, right? Percentages matter, right? And so it's not as though women don't enjoy superhero movies. The Marvels failed because that movie was fucking trash and the plot's terrible, right? So no, I don't follow the worldviews of guys like that. But to the point of why it is I do follow them, which is another big part of contention. People ask, why do you follow people like that, right? I follow people like that for the same reason, right? That I socially say I'm not 100% right, I'm not 100% wrong, but people like that do keep me in check, right? To me, it's no different than following CNN and Fox News, right? Two competing news sources.
It's a very fence-sitting comment that he's making. And for a lot of people, they don't want you taking a fence-sitting like stance.
Oh, God. This is why I am bothered by the reactionary nature of these types of moments, because what he needs more than anything is to just talk to some niggas in private a little bit. Just join a Discord with mostly niggas and have a bit of an immersion experience, because he clearly does not know no niggas. And clearly, not even a remedial education in black consciousness and black thought. This is his white mama speaking. And don't get me wrong, I get why this is appealing. He has a black wife. Y'all didn't expect that one. But black women aren't some type of magic key to, black consciousness. It improves the likelihood. If he'd had a white wife, he would be an alt-right black guy, I'll tell you that. And yes, black women can be coons too. Please believe. I don't want to talk about it too much. I'm on thin ice after that Van Lathan video, but I'm just saying. Yeah, most black Republicans and conservatives have black wives. Thank you. This is somebody who's very normie pilled. When the world has said to him,
hey, we're not all bad. These things happen, whatever.
He's like, yeah, that sounds good. Because it's comforting to have a worldview like this. And, this is actually the thing that bothers me the most. The fact that people immediately smeared him with anti-trans and and Trump supporter, etc., is really like, that's like a big problem for me, because that is like the problem with liberals. We shield people's bad takes with identity politics, and then we smear bad takes with identity politics, not having the capacity to go deeper to understand the core of those problems. This is fixable. This is not a defense of where he's at. I hope that's clear. This is not a defense of where he's at, but be aware of the reactionary urge to make things like this huge.
Okay, well, pleasure. First time encountering. Pleasure to make your acquaintance.
Yeah, man.
I would have hoped it would have been done under wildly different circumstances,
It seems
but here we are.
And it should be.
Yeah, no, I mean, I get it. It's a wild situation, like wild scenario.
So, let me get your first thoughts here. What are your thoughts about the entire situation right now? Where are you at?
I think people's reactions make sense. I mean, when you think about it, like, I'm effectively a blank slate. Like, when it comes to political leanings, political stances, like, people don't really know where I stand, truth to tell. I mean, I've actively made it that way, right? Like, I've actively driven to make sure I don't really bring personal politics into the videos. Because I guess, maybe I could, if I'm just like, oh, guys, we're covering Absolute Batman, Batman is fighting these guys, like white supremacists, in the Absolute Batman annual, and that's why ICE and Donald Trump are bad, like, I could do that, I guess, but no, to me, I guess the way that I run it is that, I mean, me and you and people in general deal with politics 23 and a half hours a day, right? Whether they're dreaming about it, living it, whatever. So yeah, if I can spare people dealing with all that bullshit for 30 minutes, yeah, I'll happily do that.
I believe
I think
it's the ambiguity that leaves people turning against you. So I would say the tribal mentality of it all is a little bit disparaging, right? I'm sure you hate it, right? You hate it, yes.
I mean, I don't know if I would chalk it all up to tribal mentality. I mean, there's certainly some individuals out there who are just like, oh, Comics Explained has controversy, right? Let's get the clicks, But I think there's some people out there that are legitimately like, I mean, I'm a huge fan. Like, how much of this is true, right? Like, where does this guy stand at all? So yeah, if you run a YouTube channel, and you don't really make your personal politics known, nobody really knows where you stand, and then somebody fires up a video and they start accusing you of racism, then, I mean, where's the evidence to say it's not true? There really isn't anything for anybody to play. There's no video for anybody to pull up, on the Comics Explained channel where they say, well, here's Rob Line, where Rob lines out his political views. So like, clearly that's not true, that doesn't exist, so yeah. Do
you enjoy the ambiguity?
To a degree. I mean, the reality here is like we're living in extreme times, so extreme times make extreme sides, right? I enjoy the ambiguity in so much that I'm not the focus of the channel. Like the focus of the channel is the comic. But I enjoy the ambiguity in the sense that when you leave politics out of it, what's there to fight over besides the story, right? Politics are like a lose-lose situation, especially in this day and age. So
I think a bigger issue a lot of people have is the fact that the medium in which you choose to talk about, which is comics, and I think I've watched you for the better part of 3-4 years on long commutes. Your voice is in my car because you're great at explaining the comics, and by all means, I don't want to pay for them. So I just have you.
I mean, that's not the goal, but okay.
I mean, I know it's not the goal. You support, obviously, you want people to buy the comics and support the creators, things of that variety. Yeah. But as a black man in Detroit, I'm not gonna pay for these things. But that's where I'm at. I think it's your space, the space you're entering with the comic books in general is, and it's gonna sound psychotic, a little bit political. It's a little political because comics have always been a medium.
100% political. I mean, comics are absolutely political. Okay, so here's a really good example. It's the one that I always cite whenever people talk about politics and comic books. God Loves Man Kills, right? Like God Loves Man Kills is one of the most important X-Men comics of all time. And usually whenever people ask, what's your favorite X-Men storyline? Then it's like, if we're talking about like grandiosity and just a bunch of crazy shit happening, then like House of M, right? But if we're talking about like your single favorite storyline, it's God Loves Man Kills. Because God Loves Man Kills centers on the story of a religious fanatic. Like William Stryker convinced himself it's his mission from God to kill mutants. There's no one told him to. The one above all didn't come down and say, hey, William Stryker, man, like, will you kill mutants for me? Well, he just convinced himself that it was true. And there's a point in that story when Kitty Pryde is talking to a friend of hers named Frankie. And Frankie, being a black woman, right? There's somebody who runs up on Kitty Pryde, starts calling her a mutie, and then calls Frankie like a mutie lover. Frankie's like, oh, you gotta let that kind of stuff go. You gotta let that kind of stuff go. And Kitty Pryde looks at Frankie and was like, would you say the same thing if he called me an N-word lover? Right? So like, how, and like the whole word's there for you to see. And despite all the religious fervor and all that kind of stuff, the story doesn't end with some great huge fight. The story ends with Cyclops debating William Stryker, and then backing him into a corner. And then William Stryker like pulls a gun, I think, and like shoots a Cyclops or something, like a cop shoots William Stryker, and like the guy goes to jail. But like, yeah, it's very much a political story. So yeah, comic books are 100% political. Yeah.
So what happens a lot of the time is, in the face of absence, people will fill the void with what they want to believe. And this is going to sound psychotic. I think because you don't make a direct oppositional stance towards something they believe in, they're going to assume you believe the exact opposite immediately. If you say, oh yeah, I like mutants, but, and then you say the but, and the but comes in, boom, and then people are going to say, oh, okay, so you like Sentinels, eh? Like, no, I don't like Sentinels. Is it? Oh, but I saw you follow the guy who made Sentinels. Yeah, but that's because I'm curious about the technology behind it. Nah. No,
well, I mean, I get what you're saying. Like, I mean, let's get to the meat and potatoes of it, right? Like, something that you pointed out, in your video yesterday, and that's the reason why I talked to you, because you seem like one of the few people who wouldn't immediately just be like open up, like, so Rob, why are you racist? Who would immediately reject me. And I completely get, right? I mean, there are some people who are just kind of who have already made up their mind, right? And I'm not going to try to convince people who already made up their mind. Hopefully they change their mind, right? But I'm not going to go out of the way to convince them. But I mean, let's literally address the thing directly, right? Like, already described Critical Drinker and Nerdrotic as white supremacists. I don't know that I would define them as white supremacists because I'm not aware of them advocating for like black people losing their rights, for like us being, being sent back to the 60s, like black people, you can use these bathrooms, and white people, you can use these bathrooms. Now, are there certainly like racist connotations to the videos? Yeah. And like, do some of them contain racist sentiment? Sure. You can't stand up and say, I don't like that Sam Wilson is Captain America, and then say nothing when Barry Allen replaces Wally West, right? Or Wally West replaces Barry, post-crisis. If your position is, I don't like it when classic characters get replaced with new ones, You don't get to pick and choose based on race. And even if they don't, even if they're not actually racist, it comes across that way. Having said that, I'm not really sure where people are getting the idea that like I watch the videos and subscribe to the channels and all that kind of stuff.
What Rob was trying to point out with the Kitty Pride mention was this right here. And it's basically an example of, and this is kind of like Marvel being a little bit smart in a way on like how they choose to use words. And it's a words have meaning kind of situation. But often when it comes to social media, you hear people go, it's just a word, it doesn't matter. It's just a word, it doesn't matter. So this entire strip right here is meant to be a shock to the reader and give you a very, very strong, harsh example to explain the meaning of, hey, it doesn't matter how much you think a word doesn't matter. All words have meaning and all words have power. In that you can see the example of that in what words people do use. So basically, like when it comes to like a lot of social commentary about words, and you hear people go, well, this derogatory word isn't as strong as this derogatory word. And that's what this piece right here is about. Someone calls Kitty Pride a mutie, which is a derogatory word for mutants. And then Frankie, the black character, goes, it's just a word. Who cares, essentially. It's just a word. And that's what you see a lot of social media to this day. To this day, you see people say, oh, it's just a word, who cares? And so Kitty goes, well, what if he said the N-word with the hard ER? Not the Negro or nigga, the ER. It's basically like, would you care then? Would it be just words then? Right? And you can pretty much surmise that Frankie would probably be very upset if it was the N-word being used instead of, the term mutie. And the whole point there for Marvel, this is a Marvel comic, is that they want you to like understand that all words have meaning and no word is bigger than another word. Being called a muties is no different than being called the N-word. They're equally powerful, freaking hateful words. What Kitty Pryde was called was very hateful.
Here goes the bigger issue here, right? It's obviously impossible to argue with an ideology because you're never talking to a person. You're talking to a structure that has already decided exclusions before you open your mouth. You're arguing against a bulk mass of beliefs on top of each other. Now, with Neurotic and Critical Drinker, they have the same kind of adjacent viewpoints towards the things. They're going to make rage bait titles. They're going to grip. They're going to get that money because a lot of people feel alienated because they're not allowed to be racist. Back in the day, think of any truly white friendship you've ever had in your life, right? If you think about it, the way how good the racism is and the friendship determines how good the friendship is. Oh, he lets me say the N-word. He's fun. He's cool. He's base. He's a cool guy. And
well, I mean, obviously, I'm not a Trump supporter.
That's great. I'm happy. First here, guys. First here.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I guess people don't really know that because I really tweeted out and just been like, I stand against ICE. I mean, sure, like my guy, I got brown skin. Like the Supreme Court of the United States and Clarence Thomas, who doesn't know he's black, like they literally ruled that guys like me are a problem because I don't have skin color like them. Okay, whatever, right? So I'm clearly not a fan of ICE. And I'll kind of circle back around that a little bit because I think I think a lot of what you see on social media with so much outrage, I think stems from a sense of powerlessness. Right? People just don't know what they can do, right? And so they just do whatever they feel like they can do, And sometimes I think it's justified, sometimes it's not, But to your point about the idea that people come along and they say, well, I'm a huge fan of Comics Explained. And Comics Explained follows this guy. So clearly this guy is worth following. Honestly, man, I get what you're saying, but I think that drastically underestimates the people's ability to decide things on their own. Yeah, no, I think it drastically I think the idea that people would just blindly follow people that I follow and just assume I am fans of them because I follow them. I understand that, but I think it removes that person's agency and that person's ability to sit down and say, okay, but do I like them?
Well,
like, do I enjoy the content?
That's a great point, but I'd like to offer an immediate counterpoint of the average person. I'm talking about 51% of the population. Let's say 51%. They're going to get their opinions from a 30-second reel or some unverified TikTok. They're not going to sit in silence and actually think with things because of the overstimulation of the current populace and how things operate. That is the current day and age we live in, and we can't ignore that fact when it comes to actually talking about how the brain has metastasized itself into these disgusting metrics of getting things algorithmically fed. Majority of my audience is not my audience. They come from my new videos and some of my drama content, some of my political takes, but they don't watch my past videos because my subscriber base, my number is worthless because they're there for a specific kind of thing because the algorithm fed it to them. The average person is not thinking deeply for themselves to try to get a better version of the thoughts they want to have. That's what's happening. Centrists, they're saying I don't like trans people. I'm like, where'd you get this from? It's crazy, and they're attacking me. And I get like hate messages every day for stuff I say naturally. That's what it takes to be a content creator. That's life. What is happening is the average person is seeing you follow Neurotic and the Critical Drinker, and the average person is going to see that the Critical Drinker is. They're not even going to look at the video. They're going to look at the thumbnails and say, oh, it's black woman woke, and they're going to go to Neurotic's videos. You go to Neurotic's page right now. First thing is Hollywood woke is broke or something of that variety, and then they're not going to watch your content. They're going to look at the thumbnails because we're in a headline centric thing. And I'm not taking away the personal agency. I'm actually giving them insane personal agency because they've made the decision already. That's their personal agency based on the headline. You're giving people insane credit by saying they do the research and go further, but they just wouldn't. I don't think they would.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. I mean, to the point about people seeing that, like, number one, nobody even knew that I followed them.
Well, I think in this situation, Rob has like a blissful ignorance about him. So Cyril's, and it's funny, like you think about the three-way situation here when it comes to, me, myself, and then freaking, these two. You have three black guys, me, Cyril's, and Rob. and we're all different like examples of the black mono, like the black identity and how black isn't a monolith. You know, me and Cyrils are from the same freaking town. We're both from Detroit, right? But Cyrils was born in Egypt. He's half black and half Arabic. You know, still black. Yeah. And you wouldn't know that, you know, by just looking at Cyrils, you wouldn't think he has a parent who's not black. Just by looking at him. Looking at me, you would say the same thing. And the funny thing about that is that kind of comment is different based on who sees you. I told this story before. Rest in peace to her, by the way. But my friend's mom, and when I say this, don't think of her as being someone who's racist, because she's not. She's a very, very kind and loving woman. He's Filipino. She's Filipino. His dad's white. And the first time I met his mom, she looked at me and she asked, "What else? What else are you?" And she was just curious because, you know, I have a very light complexion, and people can look at you and they might just see black. Some people look at you and they go, "Okay, there's more there with you than just black, right?" You know, because I do have a fairly light complexion. And I was like, well, you know, my grandma on my mom's side, my mom's black. You know, I have two black parents, you know, generally. But we're very, very diluted when it comes to our ancestry. My mom's side, I don't know about my dad's side, because I don't know much about my dad's side. My mom's side, you know, we're predominantly black, but we're also Native American and Irish. And that's on both her parents' side. Both her parents are black, Native American, and Irish. My granddad, at least, is black, Native American, Irish. My grandmother, she has black, Native American, and French. And the French and Irish are like just that much. Like it's barely there. We're mostly Native American and black, mostly black. But you know, again, Native American percentage is very, very high. And so I told her that, and she's like, "Oh, I can tell." And my friend was kind of like, he kind of felt a little embarrassed because it's like, bro, why don't I just ask him, you know, about his racial background? And I kind of like just shrugged up because she wasn't being like mean. She was just curious, you know, because at that time I didn't have locks. So my hair was like, I have very, very good hair. So, you know, generally when you have a lighter complexion and good hair, people kind of just assume your racial background. She was just curious, you know, and I answered her question. I didn't find it offensive at all. Because again, she was a very, very nice, sweet lady, especially when it came to like my interactions with her. Again, rest in peace, because she did pass away a couple years ago. But just like gives you an example of like just how much blackness can like be different between people. Because Rob is half black, half white. Cyril is half black and half Arabic. I'm predominantly black, but I do have Native American ancestry, as well to go in there as well. And it didn't, like I said before, just a pinch of Irish, a pinch of French. Just thought that was like just something to like point out. But anyways, going back into like what Rob is saying and what Cyril was saying, Rob is coming from a place of like just kind of like a blissful or even like willingful ignorance. He doesn't agree with what Cyril said, mostly because he doesn't really have that experience to know what Cyril's even talking about, right? Yeah. Let's go back a little bit. Like, so you can hear what Cyril said again.
Underestimate people's agency.
I don't think it's gonna be like they're gonna go over there and say, "Oh, Rob supports this." I think it's gonna be the average person, the normal guy who isn't an extremist, right? Because I'd say, let's be realistic here, 5% of all Americans are arguing on Twitter, and that's maybe 7 million people. So if someone sees a tweet has 2 million likes and it's an average person who's not an extremist, they're gonna think everybody thinks like that because 2 million is a big number because people can't fathom big numbers. So they're gonna see you with 2 million, they're gonna see the people that are 2 million extremists, and they're gonna say, well, everybody must think like this. So they're seeing nothing but extremist takes. They're on my comments. There are people calling me a shill, an enlightened centrist. They're saying I don't like trans people. I'm like, where'd you get this from? It's crazy, and they're attacking me. I get like hate messages every day for stuff I say naturally. That's what it takes to be a content creator. That's life. What is happening is the average person is seeing you follow Neurotic and the Critical Drinker, and the average person is going to see that the Critical Drinker is, they're not even going to look at the video, they're going to look at the thumbnails and say, oh, this black woman woke, and they're going to go to Neurotic's videos. You go to Neurotic's page right now, first thing is Hollywood woke is broke or something of that variety, and then they're not going to watch your content, they're going to look at the thumbnails because we're in a headline-centric thing, and I'm not taking away the personal agency, I'm actually giving them insane personal agency because they've made the decision already. That's their personal agency based on the headline. You're giving people insane credit by saying they do the research and go further, but they just wouldn't. I don't think they would.
Okay, so Rob's going to say he doesn't agree. What Rob doesn't agree with, he doesn't agree that people look at headlines and go from there, which is 100% true. You know, and that's why I say he's willingly being ignorant or blissfully ignorant or whatever. He doesn't know, he doesn't follow people, and he doesn't pay attention enough to notice people are very, very headline driven. An example I'll give you on people being headline driven is actually the Olympics right now. So let's pull up two people. So we have Amber Glenn, and we'll bring up her teammate as well. And then we have Alyssa Liu. So Amber Glenn is like very, very pro her politics. She's very open about her politics and things like that. And because of that, there's been headlines, not details, headlines that kind of like just point out, that she is a queer gymnast who has made comments about the United States. People don't read anything beyond that. They just see queer gymnast has, comments about the United States. And because of that, there's people who just hate her right now. There's people who, they want her to fail. They call her un-American, even though she's right here crying with the American flag draped over her body. Even though she's right here again with the American flag, she's representing America in the Olympics, has won some gold medals throughout her career representing America. But because a headline said queer gymnast has anti-American takes, people just assume she hates America. So all of social media is people who hate her and think she hates America because she made some comments about what's going on right now in the country. We have a society right now where if you say anything negative, they automatically assume you hate America. On the flip side, when it comes to her teammate, she doesn't really talk a lot about her politics. So by default, people just goes, she's pro-American. And it's like, they don't know anything about her or her politics. They create the headlines themselves. They see a headline that she won gold medal and they go, that's what a proud American looks like. And it's like, what's funny? You can't project your beliefs onto this person. First of all, she's like, maybe like 19, 20 years old, 24. So she's a young adult. She has her own beliefs and she's actually been like very vocal about it because you don't know her beliefs because, her beliefs were something that she pointed out months ago. But since they don't know her beliefs because they don't research anything, like Cyril said, people aren't researching anything. They're just going with the headline. They don't research her background. They don't know anything about Alyssa at all, right? But the headline is that because the internet didn't tell them to hate her, they don't hate her. They tells you to hate Amber Glenn because she made an anti-American comment about politics. So basically, if you lean to the right, you hate her because she made some left-leaning comments. But because you haven't heard her say anything about left or right, they're now anointing her as one of them. And it's like, well, actually, she has openly stated that she is left-leaning. Not only that, her dad, for those who don't know, is a political refugee. Her father was actually a protester at Tiananmen Square. For those who know about the Tiananmen Square, her dad was actually a protester during that. Excuse me if I don't know how to freaking pronounce or spell shit, right? So this was the Tiananmen Square for those who don't read a fucking book. No, namely this picture right here, if you're American, you'll see this picture 1,000 times. The Chinese guy standing in front of some tanks. Her dad was there. Her dad was a pro-Democrat activist at Tiananmen Square, and he fled to the United States as a political refugee to avoid, prosecution, right? That's her dad. So if you're right-leaning, you anointed her as being like one of you because she hasn't freaking, made the same kind of comments openly as Amber Glenn. What that goes into is what Cyril was saying. People don't research, they just see a headline and go from there. And Rob, he doesn't agree with that. He doesn't read, people would just read headlines. Rob, people just read, even your own drama, it's just people reading headlines. People seeing a tweet and going, that's true. Let's argue exactly that because this one tweet said so. I'm not clicking the entire tweet to see the details. The tweet itself says this. So therefore, it's about Rob is true. Rob has way too much patience and lenience. And I want to say it like that. He thinks people are way more intrigued and intelligent than they actually are. He thinks people are researching throughout their entire day to like get something right. They're not. They're just seeing, people don't want to read. America has, the average reading level in America is like 6th grade. People don't fucking read. They don't want to read. They want you to tell them the bullet points and go with that.
I don't agree with that. I mean, to the point about people seeing that, like, number one, nobody even knew that I followed them.
True, I had no
because, you know, it's a funny thing, you know, because people were just like, you know, Rob's been following Nerdrotic, you know, for you know, years and years and years and years, and it's like that's actually not true, right? Like the way that Twitter follows work, right, is that the longer you follow someone, the lower down they appear. And so if you were to go to my Twitter page, right, and you were to pull up the people that I follow. And you start scrolling down, right? The first person that you would see, just as a frame of reference, you know, matter of fact, like I'll pull up my Twitter page myself. The first person that you would see is somebody that I followed the other day from a Twitter space, because he was like, hey man, like, you know, if you're down for doing Twitter spaces again, let me know. But yeah, if you click on followers, people that I follow, the first person will be Leo Millie, I think. And then if you start scrolling down, right, you're gonna see Critical Drinker and Neurotic, right? And if you just keep going, there's a ton of people under them. So you know, me following them is a relatively new thing, right? You know, within the last 6 months or so.
What changed in the past 6 months? Are you just trying to get curious on their mindsets on things, or what happened?
Yeah, you know, well, honestly, it's all this bullshit out here, right? Like it is. I mean, let's be honest, man. Like, 41 years old, I've been alive. I don't think I've ever seen it this bad. Like, I really don't think I've ever seen polarization this bad. Now, granted, social media amplifies, right? And you're not wrong about saying we live in like a headline era, right? And you know, these quick little beats, you know, where somebody uploads a 30-second video, which is why I think it was doubly important not to promote the things they say, right? And not to tell people, you know, yeah, go check out this video and decide for yourself. You know, no. Yeah, that's not something that I'm cool with. You know, but you know, most people had no clue that I followed them. You know, it wasn't even within the last day or so that people actually found out. Now, how they feel about that, you know, was entirely based on their opinions. You know, a combination of me and a combination of those guys. And again, you know, the political ambiguity kind of feeds into it. But yeah, I still stick by the idea that, you know, if for some reason people started going through my followers, right, and we're like, you know what, I'm gonna look up every single person Rob follows, and I'm going to decide whether or not I agree with every single person Rob follows, and I'm just going to assume he likes them because he follows them. And go from there. And in that way, I can see where you're coming from, you know, and say, you know, people say, well, Rob follows Critical Drinker and Neurotic, so clearly he agrees with what they say. And that's why, you know, when I made that Twitter video, like I want to make it clear, like I do not respect them, and I do not like them. Like I do not follow them because I agree with their belief system at all. You know, I follow them because they're on the other side, and I firmly believe it's important to understand what the other side says. So yeah.
No, you're on the. I would say you're correct in that front, but here goes my question. Is it just to understand for what purpose? What is the end goal of understanding them? Because if you just want to understand what they're saying, then you need to look no further than the wild nonsense that Pam Bondi or Trump is saying. You need to look no further than the rage bait economy of what it is to grift, because it is the same regurgitated talking points over and over again. And you could have that critical analysis of the left saying, well, everybody deserves this and everybody deserves that, when it's just the same regurgitated talking points. What specifically are you gaining, and what are you doing going forward? Are you just gaining it for your own benefit, or are you doing something with your objectively massive platform to do something about this? What is the end goal?
Like when you say to do something about this, are you saying like speaking out against them? Like, am I building some kind of a case against them? Like,
no, I don't want you to become a drama channel, man. I'm asking.
I have no interest in doing that.
Yeah, obviously, you're making comic books. Obviously, no one wants to do this drama garbage. It's absolutely depressing. I'm just asking. It is depressing. I'm actually asking. I don't think you're going to talk to these people. Are you? Like, if you talk to them, that's fine. It's your own prerogative. But what?
I've never talked to them. I have no intention to.
Are you just because you can follow? So you can just look at their stuff without following. I need like a. I understand your reasoning behind it, but like, what's like a direct reason? Like, what's the why?
Because it was the only way to really see what it is that they say. I mean, sure, I could go out of my way and you know, type in and see what they say.
Yeah.
Or to type in their names and search for it. But 90% of my Twitter feed is just Trump bullshit.
Why? Actually, you know what? I'm not even gonna chastise you on that, because that is my Twitter feed too. That is my Twitter feed too.
Somebody on Twitter made a really good point. Like, and I didn't think about it until I saw it. They were like, I don't know what the fuck is going on. Like, can I say the F word on here?
You can say whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah. They're like, I don't know what the fuck is going on with Twitter's algorithm, but they were like, it's almost like you see a post, you stare at it for more than 10 seconds, and that becomes your Twitter feed, right? And sure, like,
I don't agree with that. People don't know how algorithm works. You have to seek out there's certain things that'll pop up, you know, just via people who you follow also follows that kind of content. So the algorithm will assume because you follow this person that you're interested in this, and that could be why his feed is pro Trump stuff, because he does follow two white supremacists. But I'll just use my own Twitter as an example for you. When I pull up my Twitter, I almost never see political stuff. Almost never. It's very, very like rare. Even when it comes to like my news feed. My news feed right now is Kurt Angle, WNBA, soccer. What's happening right now? UFC. I don't know what the fuck that even is. WWE, Juliana Miller, which is UFC. So just sports. My following, you see, this is related to Godzilla. So this is a comic book channel essentially. Sports, more sports is Ric Flair's daughter, Charlotte Flair. That's wrestling, sports. My entire feed is just sports, right? That's just like my following page. If I go to For You, you will think, okay, well, if you go to your For You, then it'll be way more, you know, expanded, right? Sports. You see my point, right? The first thing you'll see that's not related to sports is right here. This is, I don't know what this is. I'm going to assume Valkyrie is a streamer. So I'm going to assume some issue with streamers. I'm trying to like read it. Some of her brother who died. I don't know what it's about. So this is the first. So all that scrolling against, this is the first one anything has been seen that has nothing to do with sports. Why this is here, I don't know. That's just one thing. Then it go back to sports. See, like the algorithm, right? Out of everything in my algorithm in the For You page is all sports or video games. It's video game related, and there's just one thing that's just like random. So your entire feed won't be just that one thing unless you yourself are seeking it, right? Even when it comes to like something else, let's go threads. So my threads feed when it comes to For You, sports. It's all sports, right? Random person who I don't know who that is. Sports, more sports. Something political, sports, right? My general point is, in order for you to like see, in order for your entire feed to be one thing, you have to be seeking it. So I doubt his feed being all political things for Trump. I doubt that's just random algorithm nonsense. Like, no, he has to be like clicking on it. He has to be reading it. He has to be interacting with it. He has to be following people who interact with it for his feed to be that all the time. You know, even Cyril's, he says that's his feed too, because Cyril's literally tries to be engaged in a kind of conversation. So he himself is looking for it. So it's in his feed because he's looking for it. He says he's looking for it. Rob's saying, I don't look at this stuff, but it's his entire feed. It's not how algorithm works. You know, you have to engage with the algorithm for you to, even when it comes to YouTube, you have to engage with things on YouTube in order for it to be your algorithm. We've watched one Cyril's video, and now we got one in our freaking algorithm. Before today, I have never seen his videos in my page when it comes to YouTube, right? Because I watched one video, now it's there. You know, I've watched 2 videos about Destiny, so now my name is Bife. There's a video up on my feed. I don't follow his channel though. You know, we clicked on one video for wrestling, and I got wrestling videos. So like you see like how the rhythm works. You're seeing people who I don't follow, but because I clicked on a video or 2, it's now here. I don't follow this person, but I did watch a video about black desserts. So now it's a video about 30 black banned African American cooking tricks. You know, so I feel like what I'm trying to say is very understood. In order for your algorithm to be one thing, or does it be something, you have to be looking for it. And one thing you're noticing is what? There's no politics here. Why? Because I don't look at political shit. So in order for him to have all this political nonsense in his feed, he has to be looking for it.
President of the United States says, not because I like him, but because when he comes out and says, like, I agree with this, that shit affects the whole nation, right? So, I mean, it's just like, like Pam Bondi, go do this shit, right? And, okay, Donald Trump, I'll just do whatever you tell me to, and Supreme Court will bend the knee, right? And, it's just, but nonetheless, right, I digress.
That's valid. I gotta ask Noah.
Then in particular, I pay attention to them because they are in my space, right? They are in the
comic
nerd
space,
comic book space. Yeah, they're in the nerd comic book space. And again, it's one of the things I said before. One of the most important things for me, when it comes to political perspectives, is to, by every measure possible, to avoid confirmation bias and groupthink, right? And that's why I say, if I sit down and they tweet out something, and they're like, okay, so like a good example of this. So if I remember correctly, like I was on Reddit at some point, and somebody was posting up a Twitter shot, like like Reddit when they post something, there's like this person posted on Twitter, like they show like the person on Twitter and they showed me, so it was like Nerdrocker, one of those guys, and I don't know if it was them specifically, it was like that side, right? And it was the whole idea of She-Hulk, right? I don't know if you remember that meme where she's like yelling at Bruce Banner,
I'm angry every day of my life. I have to control me.
Yeah. There was this meme that was circulating around for a little while. It was like pushed by that side, where it's like Bruce Banner, his dad killed his mom and his dad beat him up, and he's like been chased by the government all the time, and She-Hulk's like, I get catcalled sometimes, and it was clearly like this argument being created by that side, which was like, that's unnecessary, that's stupid, right? Like, this is why we don't need women in those movies, and for me, it wasn't even a question of like, do we need women in more prominent roles? I mean, yeah, absolutely. Women in superhero movies are dope. If that wasn't true, Captain Marvel would not have made $1 billion, right? Like people, the plots of the movies need to be good, But for the point that they were making, it did raise the question: was it well handled, right? Like, was that scene in She-Hulk a well done scene? And if I didn't think it was, then how would I have handled it differently? In which case, I definitely would have handled that scene differently. But that's not a train of thought that I would have gone down if I hadn't, seen what that side had to say.
Well, that's interesting. That's a very interesting point you bring up, because it goes on the point of thinking deeper when it comes to certain narratives. And I will admit, if they are asking the very difficult questions of, man, this property was horrible, but you're taking half the question. Like, you're taking about half the question. I am not a centrist. I gotta get this point. For anybody watching,
Rob has openly said that he's a centrist. So what Rob does is he doesn't answer questions fully. He just takes half of it and then gets his views there, which is what people in his audience does. They don't listen to like the full thing. They listen to like what they want to hear and then go from there. A lot of times Rob just dodges a question and then goes like these little tangents.
To your point, I've never been, most comic book fans that I have come across, that I have met, are either socially awkward as hell, right? Which is kind of adorable. I think it's kind of a funny thing. Or, they are the folks that just want to read comics and enjoy comics, and they don't really care about the politics of it all, right? They deal with politics every day, and they just want to ignore it. I wouldn't say ignore it. Take a break from it.
You feel yourself to be a veil of escapism for the common man, I imagine. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I take pride in that. Like, I take pride in the idea, that my channel gives the ability for people to escape comic books. But that's why I also fired that second video up on Twitter. When I told people, hey, just because I don't talk about politics does not mean I'm oblivious to it, right? And it does not mean that I ignore it, right? Or that I don't have my own political stances. I mean, there's clearly lines in the sand, right? Like, while I do think it's important to understand both sides, I'm not going to go to a fucking Klan rally based on their skin color. That's where I draw a line.
And I'm happy now everybody knows this. Now that's good. That's good, and that's fair. No one should ever do what I do. You are smart to avoid that at all costs. And a lot of people think you are somebody that would just, they're calling you a nocturnal mammal is what they're calling you. That's what...
I mean, I don't give a shit.
I know, because you responded to Blerd Without Fear in the message really aggressively, and people were carpeting on that when you told them to F off, which was people were harping on it.
Okay, so let's talk about that, right? So one of the things that Blerd pointed out in his video is, like, I think Rob was coming to me from a place of hurt. Yeah, right. Me and Ernie were never friends, right? Like, if I were going to a con and Ernie happened to be there, right, I might hit him up and just be like, hey man, like, you want to get a drink or something like that. I don't know that I would have hit him up beforehand. Hey man, I'm going to this con. Are you going? Like, if you can't afford to go, I'll fly you out or something like that. I don't know that I ever would have done that. But at least acquaintances, cordial, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, so I said that first message, that I didn't know you felt that way, and that was in response to him making the statement, the video that he made, that he felt like I didn't cover enough black superheroes, which I probably could have been clear, when I was saying that. Yeah, 100%. Like, I had no clue that he felt that way. It wasn't really anything that I think he had ever brought up, not that I can recall. But then after that, I saw that he was, like, joining in. People said, oh, he follows Critical Drinker and Neurotic on Twitter. I saw he was joining in with that, and I was like, I mean, look, I don't advertise these guys. I don't tell people to follow these guys. I don't, but and then that's when I responded. I was like, I guess you agree with him, that I'm, a coon as well. And that's when he came back and he was like, you need to make me understand. And initially, and maybe it was just kind of like I was, emotional at the time, but like initially, it just came across as like really pretentious and really arrogant. Like, why do I need to make you understand, right? Like, why is it my, but at the same time, like, I effectively invited the conversation, so I couldn't be mad at the guy for responding. So I was like, okay, take his response for what it is. So then I sent that video that I made, and then he fired back. And he was like, no, I can't, I can't support that. And then he asked me, he was like, how would you feel if I supported, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, and I told him it wouldn't matter to me, because number one, I know who you are, and number two, because who you follow in your personal life has no bearing on my life. It doesn't affect me in a meaningful way. And if anything, I would assume that he was following them because at least to disagree with them, create arguments against them, or something like that. But at the same time, I have the benefit of at least associating with Ernie enough to know that would be his stance. Again,
like, in this sense, this is Rob basically saying, I don't have a parasocial relationship with people who I follow on the internet, right? He's saying, I don't care who you follow, and I'm not going to make an assumption about you as a person based on who you follow, because I just make my videos and I log off. I'm not here for parasocial bullshit. And that's kind of like when it comes to this war people have against Rob right now. It's all born from a parasocial relationship that people have with him. And I'll give an example from, like, the black side, right? Because again, Rob's a black guy. The parasocial relationship for black people on the internet is when you see someone who looks like you, aka just see someone who's the same ethnicity as you gravitate towards them, and you want them to believe in the same things you believe in. You want them to be more like you than not, right? So when Rob, a black man who makes comic book videos, isn't going out of his way to point out his blackness and point out black characters and black comic books and black writers, things like that, the people who watch his content through parasocial relationships, they have a reaction to seeing someone who looks like them not do what they want to do. Whereas Rob's like, yeah, I don't really care that my fellow black content creator, Blerd Without Fear, has political views. It doesn't matter to me. We're colleagues in the sense that we do the same thing. We upload comic book content. We're colleagues since we're both black people doing it. But outside of that, beyond that, I don't care what his beliefs are. We're friendly in the same sense of being co-workers, but I'm not projecting any kind of belief of myself onto this person through a parasocial relationship to have a reaction to who they follow on the internet.
When it comes to politics, I'm a blank slate for the world. But yeah, when he clapped back and, he was like, you need help and that kind of stuff, it rubbed me the wrong way, because I felt like he was coming off as like this moral arbiter, for how I'm supposed to act and what I'm supposed to do. And that pissed me off. And that's why I was like, dude, F off. Like, who are you to impose your morality of right and wrong on me? I certainly would do that to you. But yeah, I mean, having said that, clearly I was emotional and probably could have handled it better, but like it came off, like the whole thing just came off as incredibly pretentious and incredibly arrogant. Now, I don't want to put words in his mouth, and it's not to say that was his intention. I don't necessarily think that's appropriate, but that's exactly how I felt at the time.
No, I think he was more so, at least from what I saw the video, he was more so defending you at first, and he was like saying, yeah, Rob obviously he doesn't know, but then somebody pointed out in his comments like, hey, you make comments about Angel Reese, and that's rooted in racism, which I still don't know, by the way. People have been asking me, because That's what I saw. The Angel Reese comments. What? So on this point, I might as well bring it up now. Why don't you like Angel Reese? What's going on there? Is it just because
She was acting like an asshole. She comes off as arrogant.
okay?
Like she just rubs me as a prick. Like she just rubs me the wrong way. Like she comes off as a prick. So yeah, I mean, it'd be different, I think, if I set that out and I was like, why is this talented hack or talentless hack even comparing herself, to Caitlin Clark? That I think would be a whole different conversation. Or if I spouted off at the mouth, calling her race, or bringing her race up, and in comparison to Caitlin Clark.
Let's stop right here, chat. Neither of these guys watch women's sports. Neither of these guys watch basketball when it comes to women's basketball, right? They know who Angel Reese is and they know who Caitlin Clark is because of social media. And when it comes to social media, as I always say, and this is kind of funny because remember earlier in the video, Rob says he's not a headline. He doesn't believe that people see headlines and go from there. His take on Angel Reese is a headline comment. He sees posts about Angel Reese and how she talks, how she acts, and from what he sees on the internet of her, he goes, she comes off like a prick. That's what he says. He doesn't say that now I think she's a prick. He says she comes off, which means I don't know for a fact, but through what I see on the internet, she kind of seems like she's an asshole, So, he kind of got caught right there. And basically being what he said doesn't exist. He says people don't read headlines and just go from there. He reads the headlines and go from there. He does with Angel Reese. Neither of them watch women's sports. Neither of them knows how good either Caitlin Clark or Angel Reese is. But because the internet had an obsession of them, because here now, the Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark feud was fictional beef created by the internet to feed into the white versus black, race war, right? People who started that stuff don't watch the sport. They just saw a black chick who was, a little arrogant because she is very arrogant. And they saw Caitlin Clark, who seems very quiet. She's not. She's also very, very arrogant. But the internet wants you to believe one person's arrogant and one person is quiet. So it's right now when it comes to just professional athletes and people who do anything competitive. Every professional athlete on the planet has arrogance. You're not going to get to that stage of being a pro without some level of arrogance, because that arrogance drives you to be the best you possibly can be in general. Full stop, right? So his comments on Angel Reese, people said that he's Uncle Tom being a black man talking about Angel Reese. And this is, again, when it comes to like labels. If you say anything that's kind of like even hinting towards a negative comment towards a black woman, doesn't matter who it is, it doesn't matter if it's freaking like warranted, people will attack you because you shouldn't be a black man saying something negative about a black woman on the internet because they get enough shit. That's why he's getting shit about Angel Reese. Personally, though, I think he should shut up about Angel Reese because he doesn't watch basketball. At least he doesn't watch women's basketball. Don't talk about the players if you don't watch the sport. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know how good either of them is. You don't know how much of an asshole either of them is. Caitlin Clark has done some shit to where she's not an asshole, right? He doesn't know that because he doesn't see that. He only sees what the internet shows him of Angel Reese.
Something along those lines, but no, it was just the idea that honestly she just rubs me as an asshole.
Okay.
I don't like that she's an asshole. So
okay, that's fair.
Even like that word, he says she rubs me as an asshole. He doesn't know anything about her. Just what he sees on the internet gives him the idea that she's an asshole.
I can't really. I don't watch a lot of sports. So
at least he admits it. He admits that he doesn't watch the sport. Rob kind of like dances around it, but you can get the sense from his comments that he doesn't watch women's basketball. Even this conversation about the chat, Cyril's didn't mention Caitlin Clark at all. He just mentioned, hey, you've been on the internet saying Angel Reese is an asshole and a prick. Rob himself brings up Caitlin Clark. Why? You don't have to. You can just say, yeah, I kind of feel like Angel Reese is an asshole just from what I see on the internet. The end. But he turns it into, all right, I gotta mention Caitlin Clark first. Why? You don't have to. Just saying what you already said, that you see these photos and videos and conversations on the internet of Angel Reese, and you just go off of that itself. I follow Angel Reese on freaking TikTok and IG, which is how I know she's arrogant. She has a lot of arrogance in her, and again, all athletes do. And she's very blunt. What kind of person she is beyond that, I don't know, because I don't know who she is behind closed doors. I don't know who she is when cameras are off. But she has an internet persona that she has, and it does have like an arrogance to it. But being arrogant doesn't automatically mean asshole. Being arrogant doesn't automatically mean prick. It just means you're arrogant, And again, all pro athletes are arrogant.
think I've heard people or seen stats where people have said things like the TV viewership of WNBA games is higher when Caitlin Clark is playing than when than anybody else. But I don't know. I'm not going to speak to it with any. Yeah,
That's fair. That's valid. Because that's what I've seen. And
but I do recognize that for people who transition, they're finding their real identities, right? And finding your real identity as a person, who you really feel like you should be. I mean, who in the hell would get in the way of that and tell them they're wrong for feeling that way?
And I believe this is what people wanted real bad from you, like in a direct answer, because that's a very measured and empathetic and human response. And I think people weren't getting that because they had rushed to a wild, vast array of assumptions about your character based off of the Blerd Without Fear video, which I'm sure, is gonna. That's how I found Blerd Without Fear, by the way. I know this is exactly how I found him. It was this.
Well, I mean, okay, so something to understand about Ernie, right? And about my perception of Ernie. I don't have a problem with him. I never really did. I mean, Ernie's channel very much focuses on highlighting Black characters, which is good. And honestly, I think he's one of the few in the comic book space that does. So yeah, I think Ernie does a lot of good in the comic book community. I don't know that I agree with it.
And him mentioning that, by the way, the beef people have with Rob is that he doesn't do that. He says it's good that Ernie does it. People want you to do it. You have a bigger platform. Why won't you do it? If you want you to, people want Rob to just say the words. Like answer the question. Why won't you do it? That's what people want. People when it comes to this entire drama, they just want him to say the words on why he won't do it himself. Why won't he highlight Black characters? Why won't he highlight Black writers? Why won't he highlight Black comics? They want him to do it. They want him to at the very least, if not do it, then say why you won't. In my opinion, I think the reason is just money. He doesn't want to, like I said before, he doesn't want his follow count to drop. He doesn't want his view count to drop because it will if he does. And it's okay to just be admit hey, this is business. You can think what you want about me when it comes to anything. You can call me a corporate shill. You can call me this. You can call me all these names. This is business. I'm trying to make money, and if I do that, I'm losing money.
If I agree with that, but I do firmly believe.
Maybe I'm wrong. Rob, he'll never see this, but if I'm wrong, I have no issue with being wrong. But if I am wrong, then say why you won't make that kind of content.
I think, truth to tell, I think Ernie's video was made from a place of hurt, to be honest with you. I think Ernie had a viewpoint of me and what he believed I stood for. And I think that based on that video that I made, that perception of me was shattered. I think he certainly had certain views of me based on things, based on the fact that Milestone didn't resonate with me on a personal level and different things like that. But I don't really, in my heart of hearts, believe that Ernie thinks I'm actually racist. Maybe he does. Maybe he really does.
Yeah, I think he thinks you're pandering for the white people. I don't know. Because a lot of people online, and I have avoided this at all costs, and people hate me for it. A lot of people want you to absolutely vilify somebody so they can feel powerful, so they can feel justified in the hate mob. Destroy Frankenstein, ignore Victor. That's what a lot of white guys, right? And this is a very unfair statement. I've always felt it's a very unfair statement because the majority of America is white, and you're not like a Black nerd centric thing. Because for most of my life, up until not too long ago, you have been an anonymous, sultry voice. So I just listen.
Well, that's why I say, man. Once I calm down from it all, because no matter where you are as a content creator, you see people making all these videos about you, right? And saying all these things about you, and just making claims where you're like, I don't even know where they got that from. It rattles you to a degree. But then once that calms down, then you're just kind of like, okay, yeah, the rational mind starts to take over, and once that did, I was talking to my girl Mariah, and once that did, it was I sat down with her and I was like, one of the things that I just kind of realized, I am like a black hole when it comes to politics. No one knows what I stand for. No one knows what I believe. No one really knows, the things that I value and the things that I don't. So yeah, I just immediately become whatever it is people say I am because there's nothing to the contrary.
That's right. Well,
it's an interesting revelation, interesting way to find out.
I doubt this video will hit like wildfire. That's not really my goal here. I imagine that at least the people that want to seek it out will at least the conversations we're having right now have a better idea that you are not a racist, pro-Israel, transphobic, nocturnal mammal Uncle Tom. It was
on how I would interact with other content creators. Number one, I wouldn't give a shit about people's follower counts. Right, that would be because before I became a YouTuber, I was a huge fan of the Call of Duty space, right? And the Call of Duty space back then, Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops 1, Black Ops 2 to a degree, before I think it stopped being the space that I fell in love with. That you would have these kind of groups, right? And nobody would work with you unless you were equivalent to their size or bigger, and they could grow off of you or something like that. And oftentimes it was but I mean, they seem like really cool people though. So why don't you just make a video with them? And that was when I kind of made the promise that follower counts don't really matter to me, right? It's not really relevant to me. Sometimes I'll just go on a podcast kick, right? I'll just be I'm gonna do podcasts the next 3 months, right? And I'll just jump onto all these different podcasts over time, and then just not do it again for 4 years. So yeah,
I think that's a very objectively healthy mindset to have. That is an objectively healthy mindset to not let the hubris of the number cloud who you are as a person. And it's a mindset that my father imbued that in me. That to not exactly what you said. My dad said that because he said you used to be just like them. I'm like, you're right. I was worthless, and now I'm not. You're right. I should also say crazy statement, but I understand that. That's a very fair mindset. So
yeah, I don't know. I don't like the idea. That doesn't sit well.
Then we got the gist of a chat. Now they're just talking about politics, and like I said before, the actual politics of the conversation is not what we care about. Just the conversation itself when it comes to why people are mad at Rob. And we've gotten the gist of it, and we got into the point of like he's just answer the questions people want question. Why won't you cover the black comics? If you give like an actual answer, then people can go from there. Maybe he feels like he doesn't have to, and to an extent he doesn't. But when you are someone with a platform, when you are someone who makes content, you do put yourself in a position to, because you're an influencer, whether you like it or not, you're an influencer. Even myself, I'm a nobody, but I'm still technically kind of I'm in the influence space, right? So to a degree, when you're an influencer, you do kind of have to answer the question. Just answer the question. And Rob won't answer the question. Just answer the question. Because when you don't answer the question, as I mentioned before, it leaves the space for open people to just fill in the blanks. You don't want that. You want people to fill in the blanks, whether you care or not. You don't want them to fill in the blanks.